Hello and welcome to Love, Dating, and Relationships for Spiritual Women. I'm your host, Julie Grimm. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a healer and a guide in the Modern Mystery School. I'm really excited to have with me today, Sydney Culver. She is a feminine embodiment coach, and she also is a spiritual guide with the Modern Mystery School. So welcome, Sydney.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. And this is one of my favorite topics, love, dating, and relationships.
Yes, absolutely. When I started this podcast about 6 months ago, you were already on my list of people that I knew I needed to talk to because of all of your posts and everything, and following you on Instagram and Facebook. It definitely seems like an area that we share interest in.
For sure. Yeah, it is an area that I've been studying and learning through in my own experience. And I mean, I think women generally, we love everything related to dating, sex, and relationships, but or dating, love, and relationships.
We can throw sex in there,
we
Sydney.
can throw sex in.
I see where we're going today. Okay.
But it has definitely been one of the things that I've really devoted a lot of time to understanding and, gaining some kind of knowledge and wisdom, and hopefully at some point mastery in, because it's that important to me as a woman, and I think to us as women.
Yeah, wisely said. So today our topic is the alchemy of relationships, or the alchemy of dating. So if you wanted to get us started, what does that mean to you? And some people who might be listening in, maybe alchemy is something that they've even studied. For others, that might be sort of a new concept. Like, what does it mean to be within relationship alchemy, or explore that even in the dating world?
Yeah. So alchemy, in its kind of traditional view, is changing lead into gold. And so, when we apply that to our transformation as a human, it's like using the lead of our unconscious to get the gold of our true self and our true nature. And so I think relationships are such a potent place for this, because there's almost nowhere in life where we have as much lead come up as when we're in relationships. So relationships, they trigger our wounds, they trigger our childhood, core beliefs. They trigger us, they bring up a lot of raw material that, if we are conscious and we are choosing, can be an amazing place to grow and learn in. And we can use it to see ourselves more and to know ourselves more, and then to take what we see that we maybe isn't so pretty or isn't so additive to the realm of relationships, and we can use it to change and grow.
I mean, that sounds amazing and so beautiful. How would somebody, so, even in the dating world, the lead can come up pretty quickly. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm in the online dating scene, and I feel like I can sometimes be triggered just in the first conversation with somebody, or even vice versa. I know that I've triggered them. What does somebody do with that? How do we use that, not as a, so what I'm asking here, I guess, is that what I see often when people get triggered is that they just kind of push away, especially in the early moments of dating, because there isn't really that strong relationship that's been formed. So there's not really a commitment per se. And so you just kind of reject somebody or get rejected, or whatever the situation may be. So what would that trigger? What's another way to work with that trigger, I guess, for people?
Yeah, well, I actually feel that dating in some way provides an even richer context for alchemy, because there isn't that commitment, and there isn't that we're not going to do relationship alchemy together in dating. It's all comes back to us. Like, it's just right there. Like, if anything comes up, in me, I know for sure that it's mine. There's no like sneaky bit that I get to blame it on my partner, or, I'm not going to work it out until my partner does X, Y, Z, or, like, it really is about us with us. And so I think the first piece of that is to recognize that if something's coming up for us, it is ours, and there's a lot
Seems that I've lost you momentarily. Oh, there you go. Lost you for a minute.
All right. So should I start over or pick up somewhere?
Yeah, so I think you can, you were talking about how dating can be even richer sometimes because it's all us. So maybe just continue with that topic of there's no way to project. It's not as easy to project that onto the other person.
Yeah, yeah. So, when we're in relationship, there it's easy to, to get into a lot of we-ness, or, make it about the other person, or project on the other person, or, if he did this, then I could do that, or if she did this, then that, but with dating, like, that's all removed, even though, because there's no commitment, and because sometimes someone ghosts us or disappears, and there is no opportunity for any engagement. And a lot of times early on, there are certain conversations that just aren't appropriate. And so the opportunity for everything that comes up for us to fully be ours to hold, and to really look at, and to potentially do a little alchemy on, or to own, like that's the big opportunity in dating. And you're right, it happens readily and quickly, and there requires some discernment, because sometimes there are just times where behavior is poor, and we can just go acknowledge that that was poor behavior and move on. But I think that for me, anytime I get a charge, anytime I really have a charge, I always take a moment and look and ask myself, what is really here that's mine? What need isn't being met? What belief is there? And I take a moment with it, because if there's a charge, that's in my world an indication that there's something there that's being hooked. And if there's something there that's being hooked, that's something, for me to notice and to alchemize.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And then, but to go deeper with that, because, ghosting seems to be so common nowadays, in part because of that sort of lack of commitment, which makes sense, especially in the beginning. It's like, okay, we really don't owe each other anything. We maybe haven't even met physically yet. But how much of that do you think might actually be sort of reactionary, or almost not necessarily like talking about ghosting in and of itself, but at what point do we stick with something although we're triggered versus walk away? So, do we say, oh, I'm triggered, I'm going to continue forward? Whereas I feel like typically when we're triggered early on in relationships, we just wave bye-bye. Like, this isn't going to work. See you later, my friend.
Yeah, I don't think there's a one size fits all answer for that. And there is a lot of nuance and discernment in that. But I do think that every time there is a trigger, there is the opportunity for self inquiry, and to really look in the mirror and ask ourselves, the harder questions. And then once we do that process, we can determine, is this then something to walk away from, or is this then something to continue to lead into, because this just really was my stuff, and it wasn't a red flag or an indication of a behavior I'm not willing to tolerate. And even no matter what direction that decision is, there's still the opportunity for our own reflection in that, and then from that we can decide. But I think far too often people go like triggered, projection of, they fill in the blank, and I'm just going to move on without learning anything. And I think that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, what I'm hearing that I love, which is so interesting, is it's like, regardless of what kind of direction you choose, whether to keep seeing the person or whether, that really wasn't a great fit, it's really about yourself first and foremost, and taking that time to, like you said, if there's an emotional charge, get clear on what's the source of that emotional charge. And then almost, not related even, or obviously that clarity is going to feed into the decision that you make, but it's like, whether you stay with them or not, it's actually just about getting that clarity within.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that is not an opportunity that many people maybe see or take, but I feel like that's a very, um, that's part of what, if that is taken, that opportunity is taken, can make dating such an amazing place to learn and grow. Because the truth is that if there is something within us, then that can be what is driving somebody away, or that can be what might sabotage a relationship. And that might even be what draws out a certain behavior from someone, because unconsciously, there's always these unconscious programs running and triggering each other. And if we never really look below the surface, they're just going to keep running and triggering. And we're not going to, it's like if we keep doing the same thing and getting the same results, the opportunity is to change. And the moment that the opportunity presents itself is anytime we are triggered.
I mean, that goes back to the reflection that you were talking about, because there might be something kind of quote unquote hidden, or my blind spot that I'm not really perceiving in me, that then that other person mirrors or draws out or reflects. And then it's up to me whether I'm going to honor the reflection for what it is, or, like you said, project whatever my story is onto that experience and kind of write them off. Which is so easy to do. And I found myself doing this even recently, especially as women. I think nowadays, unfortunately, we kind of throw all of the power in the men's court. We say, oh, there aren't enough good men. Oh, the men don't want commitment. Oh, the men don't want to do this. They don't want that. Not really understanding how we're feeding into and creating that behavior and that outcome. And, having that opportunity to actually reflect on what is the deeper lesson that this experience is showing me, maybe about myself and the way that I'm holding myself and my energy in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel one of the things that's kind of running unchecked right now in the world, and this might push a few buttons for me even to say this, is the feminine shadow. And part of that shadow is to kind of remain in some form of victim, or and an extension of that, even if I don't self-identify as a victim, is to always be putting the responsibility and the blame over there with the men, or over there with the other, and not the humility to take a step back and go, well, wait, what's over here on my side?
Yeah, I love how you put that, because it is about humility. Humility to be able to see that maybe we're not perfect either, which doesn't say that the other side of the street maybe doesn't have their faults, but where within me can I clean up my side of the street, or my end of the deal, however you want to put it. And then I love, we were talking about relationship alchemy, and that's the beauty of it. It is alchemy. It is sort of magic in a way, because as you start to do that inner work, your reflection becomes clearer.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
And
we
those
draw different experiences.
and those patterns, I mean, that's kind of, I think the other thing that you were identifying is when we start to have an experience that's a pattern that continually repeats, that's probably a good indicator that there's something within us that we're not seeing. And, after the 15th swipe left, or, whatever, that didn't work because he did something, using the male in this example, because I'm dating men, but whoever it is, however that is appearing to us, the 15th or however many times that it goes by, and we say, oh, this thing happened again to me, maybe that's a time for us to start to say, well, what within me is causing this pattern to replay over and over again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I had like 15 thoughts run through my mind when you were talking. um, I feel like one thing I see a lot in both men and women is that there's this tendency that when we have something happen to us, or, a relationship ends and it's very painful, there's a, it's easy to harden. It's easy to harden. It's easy to put a shell on, or to be jaded, or to shut down some part of our heart, which kind of then perpetuates the cycle. And it takes a lot of courage and a pretty deep self-commitment to tend to that hurt in such a way that it doesn't create this scar that hardens or closes off our heart, but to really allow it to be something that deepens us, and a place where we can gain a lot of wisdom and self insight. And then when we take that to the next relationship, then there's something entirely different that's possible, where when we take our hardened heart or our scarred heart and the story of, the protection mechanisms or the story, it's very hard to have a new experience, or even to have the experience that we truly desire, because the very story that we're taking in and the very protection that we're taking in is its own self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways.
It absolutely is. And, armor or defense, you said wall. I mean, it's essentially blocking what we most likely desire from ever coming to fruition, because it's basically putting up a wall saying, no, I'm not actually willing to receive or accept or give or flow that energy of love. What you were saying, it really reminds me of a poem by Rumi about love, which I'm not even going to try and recite because I would just butcher it. But essentially he says, may my heart become the bread of sacrifice on love's altar. And if I'm not willing to be burned by love, then I shouldn't even really enter into its mysteries. Better for me to stay kind of outside in my safe space, but never really know the highs and the lows. And it's so true, because we do need to be open to experiencing both the joys of love, but also the heartbreak.
Yeah.
And not place one above the other, or only try to choose pleasure, only try to select the joy, and not acknowledge that there is risk of harm. But that harm, kind of going back to the story of alchemy, if we really understand alchemy, it's not harm to our eternal nature.
Right.
We're not going to be damaged eternally by that. It's maybe a superficial wound, incredibly superficial to our eternity. But when we identify with that wound, or when we identify only with our ego or lower self, that can feel, like our entire being has been shattered.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to say, like, I've had that experience of feeling like I was absolutely shattered, crushed, brought to my knees, and, felt in that moment so clearly when I was just at the deepest part of my shattering. I was like, it would be easiest right now for me to harden. Like, I could tell that was the easiest decision. And I could see I could harden here, or I could choose love again and again and again. And I made that choice. And then therefore that shattering was the opportunity for a profound shift, where if I would have hardened, all the lessons, would have been missed, and the transformation would have been missed. And I just would have walked around the world with a hardened heart.
And it does happen. I mean, I know for myself, there was a pattern or a story that I had been telling myself probably since childhood, since my first crush, about what the reality of my, ability to be loved and have that reciprocated was like this story of unrequited love, essentially. And I did a really deep healing series with a local healer here. She's actually in New York City, that is all about deprogramming the mind, especially the subconscious mind, like we were talking about before. It's where a lot of those programs live. And honestly, I didn't even really see that I was doing this until I did that healing series with her. And the result of it was that I realized how, in protecting my heart and hardening it, I was blocking this flow of love
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't even mine to block. There
Mm.
was this way that I felt like I could and should control these divine forces and actually repress them because
Wow.
they weren't going to be reciprocated, because whatever it was. And yeah, and sometimes it didn't play out the way that I wanted or expected or desired. But what ended up happening was I realized all of these instances throughout, a decade or more of time where I had, instead of not even communicating with that person, not even trying to have a relationship with that person, simply allowing love to flow. Instead of simply allowing the love to flow, I had just said nope. And obviously, you can imagine all of the places that that would just block flow, not in relationships, but in all aspects of your life, because we're holographic and
Mm-hmm.
multidimensional beings. And if I'm doing that with a partner or a love interest or whatever it might be, where else am I doing that? And so this healing series was really profound because I didn't even really communicate with these people. I just went back through and performed this alchemy where I said, okay, no, we're going to flow that love. Okay. And now I choose to flow that love. And the results were really, surprising, because I don't think I'd ever experienced something so profound up until that point. Where, I'm still actually friends with some of these people. And I've seen that our intimacy has been able to grow deeper, even just in a friend level. And I think about that sometimes because I'm like, I don't even really know what my love is doing. These are some of the mysteries of life. Like
Mm.
what is love and what does it do? And I sort of, from that experience, I now kind of think of love as this, beautiful, uniting, nourishing, healing energy that's flowing throughout the world. And every time I say no, because I feel uncomfortable about it, or because I have a story about what that means, um, I'm saying no to life. I'm saying
Wow.
no to like nourishing and supporting these people who I do really clearly care about, because I'm afraid that, oh, they'll never be my partner, or they'll never be my boyfriend, or they won't love me back. So therefore, I won't allow this to flow into the world.
You just said so many things that are incredibly profound. And I want to highlight them because they are just reverberating through my being. And one is that love is a force beyond us, and um, that when we block it out of pain, we block it also for ourselves. And the nourishment that we get by just having an open heart, regardless of if it's for no reason, is more life affirming and nourishing for us in our whole life. And I think a lot of times we have a relationship to love based on an outcome. Like we have this romantic ideal, or it means that I'm going to have the partner and live happily ever after. Like we have this real attachment to an outcome rather than love itself being its own transformative journey. Like love itself being this mystery and this force of the universe that has its own support and intelligence that's guiding us in life, ultimately towards what our soul needs and wants. And I just really love how you spoke to that, because I think that that's lost in, we just are focused on getting the goal or the prize or the king or the queen or whoever. And we forget that the journey of love is its own becoming and its own really beautiful, important alchemy in and of itself.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to how we started this conversation, which is why dating and relationships are such rich environments for that alchemy, because the love is flowing, or the
Mm-hmm.
attraction, these divine forces are really at work in relationships. And sometimes they're at work to draw up and out the dark things that, outside of the context of love and compassion and safety and care, we might not feel comfortable ever touching.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's some wounds that we only can access, you know, between us and God, and there's some wounds that only will get accessed between us and another. And I think you could go your whole life never seeing some of them until you were touched by love and relationship with another, and then they're impossible to deny, because then they come screaming out in all of their unmet, often inner child ways.
Yeah, I seem to be just sharing about my own lessons learned, hopefully to serve whoever is listening, but it's reminding me of another kind of lesson learned. I really do feel like so I've been dating for a while, and at a certain point I was like, okay, I really want a life partner. And so I became extremely stringent about who I would date. And they had to meet this whole like host of criteria, which on the one hand is great, but on the other hand was extremely limiting, to the point where I was just saying no to everybody. And it came to a point where I realized that I was a little bit saying no to love, and how love can operate outside of our checklist. And that it is alchemical in its operations, and that if we follow it, meaning, it's not that that person now is going to be my end all be all, but there's something there for me to learn that's a stepping stone, and I have to learn in relationship. And I just, for whatever reason, I can't. It won't be brought up. It won't be stirred up. It won't show its face outside of relationship. And so this was only, maybe during COVID. So only in the last year, I've started to say, okay, I have my standards, but at the same time, remain a little bit open, remain a little bit flexible, and follow that force and allow it to kind of do its work and show me what's within me, so that I can get to work rather than stay in that aesthetic state, which, I think we all have our own balance. And so for some people, they might actually need to go to the aesthetic state and like do some deep work there. But for me, that's kind of an easier place to stay and to linger. It's a safe harbor. And within that safe harbor, all of those issues that I needed to look at, I desired to look at, they just weren't getting trudged up in the same way.
That one thing I try to be aware of, kind of similar to what you were speaking to, is when I am very, very first in the like attraction phase and, connecting with someone phase, and I have less attachment and less projection running. I try to be really discerning in that moment to ask myself, like, what really is the contract here? What really is the purpose here? Because I know as soon as we get into like more attachment or physicality or connection, like it's really easy for my romantic projections to come out. But at the very beginning, when I have a little more discernment and a little bit wider lens, I really feel like I can discern and feel like, okay, season, reason, lifetime, like, okay, this person may not be that person, but there is something here, and maybe we're here to learn something together. And then I try to really honor that, that knowingness that comes through at the beginning, so that I don't, project into it what it doesn't need to be. And I can just really honor it for what it is. And the times that I've not done that is when I've gotten in trouble. The times where I've been like, at the beginning I knew, because I think we always know. Yet then at some point I decided to like make it something else, is when I've
to hold on longer, or
to hold on longer, or to be disappointed when I knew in the beginning what it really was.
Yeah, I know it's really hard, but also, again, about that hardened heart, if we're able to kind of learn to flow with that a little bit more, we open ourselves up to more experience and more fun and play. Something that helped me recently was I read this book called Once Upon a Tinder by Davina Ann, who is also a high-level initiate within the Modern Mystery School, who I'm sure you know, Sydney. And her stories, she just tells stories. They were so fun and joyful, and it was all about that alchemistry and sharing. with a partner, and she's at a very different stage in her life than I am, so maybe we're learning different lessons, but it reminded me like, oh yeah, there can be this lightheartedness, and not that we're using people and just throwing them away, but almost like dancing with life, and taking a partner for a song, and then when the song is over, saying, okay, that was a lovely dance and goodbye, where's my next partner. But as you said, as that song gets a little bit longer, inevitably feelings are going to deepen, and there will be some amount of grief and in that separation, even if we know it's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also dating is a great place to, along that kind of lightness, to practice, um, the skills that we could then use in a relationship later on. Or, one person that I follow, she talks about practicing our feminine embodiment. Like it's a place where we really get to be in the dance and the play and the practice, and it doesn't have to be always so serious. And in that play and in that practice, we're growing and preparing ourselves even more for who we would want to be and how we would want to show up to be with that ultimate partner, because the only way we can ever draw that is if we're that reciprocal. And so we get the opportunity to refine that with every dance.
And to see what we like and what fits us and what doesn't fit us. And, something that I love about dating is that as I grow, I can see how I change, with these different partners. Okay, how am I being a little bit different here? How am I being more feminine, softer, more receptive? Or how am I being more witty or playful or talkative or whatever it might be? And what do I like?
Yes.
Which part of me do I like to bring out? Which part of me do I enjoy bringing out? And that's been one thing as I've moved away from that kind of, I have to find the one, which was causing me to become extremely attached to the people I did finally choose. I can be a little bit more open-minded and flexible and explorative with those, with people.
Yeah. And again, that also is about you making it about you rather than about the outcome. And it's not to say that we make it about us, that, we just become selfish, but like when we really are always using life, and in this instance, the very potent experience of dating that is life, to use it as a mirror to self-reflect, to grow, to make it about us, then it becomes a very different journey than chasing an outcome or being attached to how something needs to be. Then it's like the world opens up of exploration rather than narrows. There's almost like when I feel the outcome, I feel like this contraction in my body rather than this like, oh, it's a journey, it's a mystery, it's an invitation. And that feels such like a different place to live from.
Yeah, when you were saying that, it reminded me of the phrase, we're in conversation with life when we're open to that experience, and when we're not as narrow-minded, life gives us things and we can say yes, we can know, we can interact with it, versus just have our blinders on, basically saying no, 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 no to life. And there might be moments where that's what we need to do, when we just need to focus all of our will and be zeroed in on something. But you can't stay in that energy forever.
Because
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And we also are co-creating, right? Like there's a dance, a weave, a give and take. We as creators, we have our intention, and then we're co-creating with a bigger experience of life inside of that. And sometimes if we're too narrow, we don't see that like our intention actually presented itself, because we assume that it was going to look like this over here when it actually shows up.
Yeah, or like I was saying, the pathway to your intention, the stepping stone, because you're here and your intention's all the way here. And guess what? There's like 100 steps in between, and you do need to take them. You can have magic. You can go a little bit faster, but you can't skip things. So it's
So
like,
true.
say you want that. Here's the pathway. You're like, no, but it's not that. Okay, but it's the pathway, but it's not that. It's literally the way that you have to walk. You can't go around it, my friend. I'm sorry. You're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll walk. I
That
guess
is
I'll take the steps.
that is such a good point. I love that. It's almost like the analogy I think of is like, we want to, somebody wants to be the CEO of a business, but they're not willing to, you know, be the to be an employee or to go learn a skill or, all the different things. They just want to be at the end, and that's very applicable to dating. And I think that for some of us who have, I feel I carry like a knowingness in my being of a certain quality of relationship, and I think that there's a lot of us that have this desire for a very profound kind of union, a divine union, a sacred union, like a beautifully deep, holy kind of relationship. And in order to be the one that could have that, and in order to be the one that could draw that, in order to be the one that could sustain that, there are so many lessons and skills and developments to become.
I love that. When you said that, I just felt so juicy and rich. And I think that's why, when you're talking about how women are really drawn to relationships, and especially a lot of the people that I talk to, women are so interested in relationships and also have struggled greatly with relationships. And I think it's for that exact reason that we are really in a time where a lot of people have in their hearts this knowing, like you said so beautifully, that they're meant for that. But that doesn't mean without work.
Yeah, yeah. And I also will just kind of drop in, not to like create a whole other tangent, is that I really see so much pain and confusion around, the understanding of masculine and feminine energies. And not just, I'm not talking about the gender of male and female. I'm talking about, like the energetic of masculine and the energetic of feminine, and how to nurture those and how to honor those and how they dance together. And, the like those are these archetypes that are meant to be a part of union. And we have a lot of wounding and distortion and shadow and misunderstanding. And, we've lost access to those pure archetypes. And I see that as a big piece too. And I feel like one of the things that needs our alchemy in our own individual process, like the alchemy of like, what is my relationship to these universal energies? How am I holding them? How am I relating to them? How am I dancing with them? How am I, allowing them in another? And I think that's a really important piece of the alchemy as well.
Yeah. What I see in that is that we have become over identified with the labels, the human labels that we applied to those archetypal energies, which are like essences, like divine essences. And because the human labels have a lot of BS around them and mental pollution, we wanted to throw everything out. We said, I don't like these mental labels. I'm going to throw them out. And I'm also going to throw out the divine essence that's behind that. And I'm going to not even interact with it. But that leaves us basically with nothing.
Yeah.
And so what I think about when I think about that within myself or with clients that I work with, it's like, okay, if you are unwilling to pick up an energy, a divine energy, because of some mental story about it, that's a place in your life that you're barring yourself from exploring, you're barring yourself from experiencing, and you're also probably limiting yourself in the way that you relate to other people. So you're barring that connection that could come from picking up the energy, whether it's, father energy, mother energy, warrior energy, protectorship, priestess energy, whatever it is. This conversation I had was specifically about warrior energy. So it wasn't even about dating per se. But if you're never going to pick up the warrior energy, I can almost guarantee you're going to be an enabler. You're going to enable people. You're always going to be the soft person to them and support them. But what that results in for some, unfortunately, is that bad habits get encouraged and bad behavior gets encouraged and just allowed. It's permissible. On the other hand, if you're always using the warrior energy, then people might not feel like you're very compassionate, and there might be missed opportunities there to show love, care, and affection to others. So it's like we're multidimensional people. These are universal energies that we can pick up at will and wield to create harmony in our life. And so if you have a lack of harmony in a relationship with other, relationship to self, I can almost guarantee it's because for some reason you've told yourself it's bad, it's not good, this is not an energy that I am. And so for whatever, I will not pick it up, and I will not wield it, and I will not use it, basically at your own disservice. And whether that's because you don't like the word woman, or you don't like the word man, or you think that actually doesn't exist and we're all the same, it's not about the words.
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm.
about those energies,
Mm-hmm.
and their creative forces. If you're limiting yourself because of the mental constructs, you're basically not allowing yourself to experience the fullness and richness of life. That's
boom.
That's my take on it. And I guess one more thing, just to tie it in a bow, because when you were talking, it was also reminding me, we were talking about alchemy. Alchemy is part of Hermetic study, and the modern mystery school anchors the Hermetic ray here on the earth. And the Hermetic ray has the 7 Hermetic laws, and polarity is one of those 7 Hermetic laws. Rhythm, one of those seven Hermetic laws. Gender, one of the 7 Hermetic laws. And these are laws that, whether or not you like them, manage the energetic flow in our world and in our reality. And again, like I was talking about, you can choose to wield them. There are energies that you could choose to master and work with, or you can, because you don't like the words, ignore, but to your own detriment.
It reminds me a lot of our, it's similar to the conversation we had about, the wound of the heart blocking the flow of love, for self first. And then, how that impacts the rest of life. And that, there are these universal energies that we are designed to flow and move and interact with and embody. And, very often it's our human experience, and like you say, the pollution of the mind, which often comes from beliefs that come out of traumatic experiences, or we have an experience and then we encapsulate it with a misunderstanding of, and that becomes our worldview. That all of this is the pollution that blocks these universal energies from moving in our lives, and that all of that distortion, or those lenses, or that pollution, or those filters, or whatever word we want to put on that, is the very thing that we are here, I believe, as humans on a spiritual path to alchemize. Like, that is the lead that once we clean it, then we have access to the gold of these universal energies, the gold of our own being, the gold of a deeper connection. And that is the very stuff that life, but in this conversation, relationships and dating, can show us. And it's like, I just keep getting this image of like this, kind of cloudy lens that we, can't see clearly through, and that we have the opportunity to clean it, and then have a very different opportunity to experience the universe and ourselves, and to move these universal energies. But I love how you talked about them being so much bigger than our human understanding, because I think, especially in collective narratives right now, we've lost the script of them being inherently part of the divine order.
I love what you're suggesting too, though, because it's like as we practice working with them, we are not only getting a sense of what the true essence of those energies are, but we're also clearing up that distortion that exists probably in our mind, but also in the mind of all humans. So, what a great opportunity for somebody if they do feel like they have beef with the feminine or the masculine for whatever reason, or whatever those different energies are that they've identified for themselves, that if they practice, they experiment, they pick it up and work with it, how much are they able then to create clarity for themselves about what the truth of that energy is, and not the distortion, the misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the danger in not cleaning it is that we will then continue to create situations that reinforce the distortion.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to, to draw the person or have the experience or, fill in the blank where we go, see, that's how it is.
That's actually a great tool maybe for people to recognize and identify when they're stuck in a pattern. If they go, see, this validates my hardened heart assessment of life, probably you are stuck in an alchemical pattern that you can easily break out of through a little bit of self-reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say, maybe it's like the pattern itself is an opportunity for alchemy, and it's coming up for that reason. If, and we're always at choice. It's always a choice if we are going to, what we're going to do with that information. But I truly believe that if more people were aware of that opportunity and more people used those moments to self-reflect and then to do the deeper inner work of like, wait a minute, that's actually, showing me this wound inside of me, this belief inside of me, this inner child that didn't get XYZ need met, this projection I have because my parent had it, whatever it is, that's the opportunity for that to be transformed. And if I feel like if people were really entered into relationship, and especially in the dating world with that attitude, it would be such a different experience. And it doesn't even, the powerful thing about dating is that we don't ever need to make it about the other person. We don't ever need to like talk to them about it. We don't ever need to make a story up about them. We can just notice what's ours and handle ours, and then get the gift and the wisdom and the lesson from that.
I love what you're saying too, because there's a certain amount of respect for the challenge, for the problem, for the obstacle. And it's like, when we honor what's being shown versus rejected or curl up in pain. I mean, there might be pain through the process, but we don't accept the gift, like you said, of that opportunity, which might seem like a challenge or an issue or a problem. Then we're also, not accepting life in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So what would you say if somebody is trying to break out of a pattern, they want to start really digging into this relationship alchemy? Where would you steer them? What sort of direction would you give them?
Yeah, I would say that every time, I think one of the pieces that prevents people from this is that they have a relation, like they're afraid of feeling difficult emotions, right? And so I want to just, the invitation to remove the fear and the judgment against feeling. Because when those triggers come up or those emotions come up, usually the tendency is to push them down and to move away from them. But when we allow ourselves to touch them and really feel them, is when we can feel then actually what the raw material is that's there for us. So when we let ourselves really feel it, and not from a reactionary, I got to discharge it on someone else kind of way, but like, oh, wait a minute, what is that, with curiosity? Like, what is that feeling? If I really sit with it and I drop in a few layers, then I can go, oh, okay, I have a fear there. What's the fear? Oh, maybe it's a fear of rejection. Okay, what's underneath that? Oh, I actually have a belief that I'm not lovable, or whatever, whatever it is, but to just slow down and to be willing to feel what's uncomfortable, and to feel it from a place of curiosity, like, what is here? What's under that? What's under that? And
Not,
then,
oh, I'm a bad person because I'm angry. Oh,
right.
I'm a bad person. I know that's something I've definitely struggled with, is that judgment, like you said, of how we feel.
Yeah. So,
Oh, I don't even know him. How can I be so upset? I don't even know this person. It's like,
right. So to remove the judgment and the story part of it, and to just really start with the, like, what is the actual feeling, without judgment, without it needing to be different, without trying to move away from it or distract from it and change it, then that's where the gold really is. That's where we can get so much information. And that isn't, that's not easy, because usually we have a lot of inner defense mechanisms, and judgments, about what it, if I'm angry, that means this about me. Or if I feel that feeling, I'm going to fall apart and never get out of bed again. Like, there can be these big exaggerated judgments, but when we actually just are willing to sit in whatever it is that we're experiencing, it's able to move through us quite quickly, and we get a lot of insights. And so then when you have those insights, then there is the next question is what am I seeking outside of myself that I can give to myself in this moment? So if I'm seeking, validation, like, oh my God, he didn't text me back, like I didn't get that, that validation of whatever, like, okay, well, what's the part of me that needs that, and how can I give that to myself? Or what, there's so many variations of this, right? But to sit with the feeling, identify the deeper needs, beliefs, and kind of the worldview there, and then to work with that in a myriad of ways. But usually one of the things is to give ourselves what we were subconsciously seeking from another.
so many tidbits of gold right there. Simple, profound, very profound.
Simple, but not easy.
Right. Simple, but not easy, and also very profound, and something that no matter how deep, far you go, remains the same.
It's true. It's true. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And if that, that can be applied to any time we have a trigger. But I know for myself, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is that this has been where I've had my biggest struggles, my biggest joys, and also my deepest learnings.
That's how it usually goes, I guess. So if you are struggling with relationships, don't have fear, don't get down, don't give up hope. There's brighter days for you. And I'll just make a quick plug. I know we both teach Empower Thyself, but I know feeling your feelings can actually be very terrifying for people. I'm come from a very academic background. People that I work with typically are very mental. That's like their safe place. So feelings then are like the not safe place. And I know for me, when I first took this class, Empower Thyself, there was actually a component of energetic protection, divine protection that happens. And that allowed me, basically for the first time in my life, to really feel safe enough to begin to feel those feelings that I was so resistant and afraid of. So if you are finding that for whatever reason, you're not really able to go there on your own, I would suggest working with somebody. I mean, I know that you're a female embodiment coach, so working in partnership so that that person can hold space for you, or becoming a bigger container yourself through something like an initiation that's going to actually alter your energetic vibration and support you in being able to hold more space and have more light to go to those deep places that for whatever reason you just aren't feeling capable of accessing.
Absolutely. It is a skill. it is a skill that builds on itself. You know, it's like a muscle. It's like first you might only be able to lift, 1 pound, and then eventually you can lift 5 and 10 and 20. And it's the same. It's like that capacity builds. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes, it's very, very helpful to both have it modeled by a space holder and then to get the tools and the initiations to hold that much more light for yourself.
Awesome. Well, it's been so much fun to chat with you, Sydney. I'm really glad that we took this time to connect, and I loved hearing your take on alchemy, turning relationship lead into gold. Like we talked about, it's just, I feel like it's a huge turning point for humanity right now. And so it is very much up for people collectively, and clearly something that we're both really passionate about. So it was really lovely to connect with you on that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me and for creating this dialogue. I think it's really important right now. So thank you so much. It's been a delight.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Sydney, her contact's going to be underneath this video. So you can just click those links and connect with her that way. All right. Thanks all. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.